Well, today we're here with Roxane, and we're excited to talk a little bit about the Eucharistic revival and the Eucharist and our experience of the Eucharist here at our parish. Welcome, Roxane.
Thank you.
So tell me, what do you like about going to Mass? What are some of your favorite parts of the Eucharist, whether they be, or maybe even experiences of Mass, in the past? Maybe there were certain parts of the ritual, or maybe certain readings, or certain hymns, or songs, or texts, or moments of receiving Holy Communion, or...
I would say one thing that has really hit me recently, I would say in the last couple of years, and I don't know what it was that tugged at me to get me to pay attention to this, but it's when the priest says, "This is my body given for you."
Well, for you.
Yeah. And at some point I took that very personally, and I needed to hear that, and now I hear it every time. And that personal aspect where before I think it was just words and it was kind of said to everyone.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just became God's voice to me. It must have been at a time that I really needed that healing word and to feel that connection. But ever since it came into my consciousness, I pay attention to it, and it's so personal and beautiful.
That is a profound sort of awareness, isn't it?
It's just a word.
That it's just a word, but yet it makes it so different. It's not just this thing that everybody is doing, or God loves everybody.
And not to make it all about me either, but it kind of is when you're seeking healing and you're seeking connection with God and you're needing guidance and just to know you're not alone, like He thought of me, right? Like the words that you're saying right now are His words to me, and throughout all of time, He had me in mind, and His heart is connected to mine, and He cares, and I needed to hear that, and I did, and I do, so it's beautiful.
No, that's wonderful. And is it, you find it's like at both times, like both the consecration of the body of the Lord and the blood of the Lord?
Kind of more with the body. I don't know why. Just
because it ends on that, right?
Right, yeah. So
it's for you, and then it ends, and then it's silence, right? So there's like a different emphasis on it.
Yeah, and it kind of prepares me then to be able to receive then as well. So there's other things like, when you say you're not worthy to receive and those kinds of things, like that prepares you too. That's a more preparation to receive, but this is again like kind of the connection before the reception. It's
a sense that almost like you're known by God, you're seen by Him.
Because we have a pretty big parish, and Troy likes to sit closer to the back, so there's a lot of people in front of us usually, and so you can kind of feel like you're lost in a sea of people a little bit, but it's like, so maybe even more profoundly because we are towards the back usually, and yet I just feel like it's zoomed right into me, like, Roxane, I see you back there, like,
That's beautiful. It's like being fully known and fully loved.
Yeah.
In that personal moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
awesome.
grateful for that.
I love that. I love that. Tell me more about like Eucharistic adoration. What's the source and summit is the celebration itself.
Yeah.
But we have such a great practice here of Eucharistic adoration. So many of our parishioners spend time back in the Magnificat chapel, taking an hour of adoration and just spending time with the Lord.
I love it. I did not grow up with it. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and our church didn't have it. I didn't even know it was a thing, really, until I started working here. I worked here for a couple of years, and it just was an emphasis, and we'd talk about it, in our meetings and things like that. And I started, well, I had little kids, and so it was hard to get away, but I started going like one night a week every once in a while, I think. And then I started during Lent. And then pretty soon, then that just, as my kids got a little older and I figured out a good time to go, which was, it's 11 to midnight.
Yeah.
And I love that time. I mean, when my kids were younger, I knew everyone was tucked in and I could leave and not feel like they were needing me. But it's also nice to end at midnight. There's just something about ending when the new day is starting. And it's just, evening is a beautiful time too for me. I love the quiet of it, arriving, and sometimes you're tired too. And I remember Father Paul told us once that we could sleep if we wanted to. And sometimes that happens. Sure. And I have to tell you this story because I might be in trouble for this, I'm not sure, but like one time I was so tired and I didn't want to go, and so I just brought a pillow and a blanket because I said, Father Paul said we could go to sleep, and I just curled up, and it was the most wonderful nap ever. So I don't know.
No anxiety at all, right?
No, I just curled up there, and it was beautiful. But really the first time I went was my kids were going through their sacraments, and so I went with my oldest son. And I remember, even though I've been going to communion and receiving the Eucharist all those years, sitting there the first time, I thought, is that just a piece of bread in there? And I thought, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just hit me in a different way. And I thought, okay, there it is, sitting in a frame, are we really supposed to believe? And maybe I was thinking about it through my kids' eyes too. Are they really, believing this? And how do I explain it to them or whatever? But then I went back and just little by little, I stopped thinking about it and using my mind no longer needed to grasp it. It became a thing where I just knew. Yeah. I just sensed his presence, and it's just very strange when you just start and try to grasp it, but then when it becomes real and it's just such a comforting presence. And I heard something recently, and I'm not exactly sure how it went, but it just, right now, I feel like this is the perfect time, in history, for us to appreciate the Eucharist, because it's either too noisy, or we're so isolated, or there's not enough quiet, there's not enough peace. And I think on just a human level, going in a space where there's no expectations really, other than just to sit there and receive his presence, is an unbelievable gift and treasure. I just feel like it's the world's best kept secret. Yeah. And for our time. And it's like the best of everything, because we can quiet our soul. And again, it's unconditional. There's really no rules other than, sort of some etiquette in adoration or whatever. But
you're right, though. It is just a free space of time, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if, until you experience that and open yourself to it, so for anyone who hasn't, I would just say, just go and just let yourself, and go a couple times, because the first time you might be thinking things your brain might be going, what is this? And
what was it like to spend an hour in prayer for the first time? I'm sure that was a little intimidating at first, right?
Yeah, I think just too many thoughts, and probably worried about what my kids were going to be thinking and asking me, probably too much of that.
But then as you enter into it, the hour, would it go by faster?
Yes. Yeah, it really does. It's amazing how fast it goes. And I kind of have a routine. I know sometimes I would feel like I probably do too much in adoration, because I remember some different, adoration sessions we'd had with Father Paul, and he would say, you really shouldn't bring work in there and things like that. But I'm a writer, and I get some of if I'm going to give a talk, I pretty much write it in adoration. That is where I get my inspiration. I just do. I don't know what it is, but I really let go of my own expectations for things and just kind of sit there before God and just say, okay, what is it that you want me to write about? And it's amazing how things flow from there. There's no writer's block there. So I do sometimes get too busy, so I try to be mindful of that. But I also I start out actually, I have a little journal.
Yeah.
And
journaling's great.
I don't know, I have a couple little thoughts that I've written.
Oh, kind of like some of your key starting
Yeah,
points.
different things my spiritual director has told me, or just that helps me. So this is the first one is Jesus help me, because that is one of the most pure prayers.
Yeah.
And another one, Lord, you are enough. That was something I heard in spiritual direction, that it's wow, really? No matter what worries I have, he's enough. And then in that Eucharistic host, it's so simple. It's so simple. And God is so simple.
Yeah.
It's not complicated, and yet he's so abundant and complex in some ways, right? And then another one was Saint Elizabeth of the Trinity, let yourself be loved. I mean, just let yourself be loved.
Yep.
And just these little reminders. Your plan is always better. Rest in his love. That was my word for 2023. So I just wanted to remind myself, rest, just rest. You can do that, and help me do your will, no more, no less. And then the other thing, I keep a little tally of people who have died. And then, so I have starting with, this one was started in 2020. So I have all the people all the way through. Now I got to the end of November 17th, 2023. But
pray for them.
Just to remind, and then I go and I have a journal and I write to God. I write to Jesus. And I start out reading the entry from the time before. I don't know why. It kind of helps me settle into it. And then I'm always amazed, wow, even in a week, so many things, God heard me, and it's really amazing to see how he works. And every once in a while I'll go back, I'm going to go back a year, and even that too,
and
it's
see what was on my heart,
a whole year.
And how the Lord's blessed me through that.
Yeah. So that's a helpful tool. And it kind of, it's just I'm starting and just talking to him in my writing.
How long does a journal last?
A while, because I don't write too much. I don't make too many demands. I just write just this little page, usually, unless I have a lot more to say. And I don't know, it's just so tender and personal. And
there's something about writing that really helps you relate it to the Lord almost.
It kind of, I start that way. Well, I start with a little bit of prayer and saying hello and just relaxing a little bit, but then this is kind of how I get into it. And then from there, I do have kind of a routine.
Yeah, so that sounds like the meat of it a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of the beginning, and then I feel that closeness, And I think, why I do the reading of the ones before, because then it's almost then I'm kind of hearing God. It's a communication. It's not just me writing. It's wow, I wrote that, and then I felt your response.
'Cause it's written from the relationship.
Yeah.
It's this give and take. It's this offering and response, or call and response, and
it's not refined. It's you don't have to write a perfect draft. I'm a writer, so it's I don't get any there's no spell check or anything. I just write it, and it's
real.
It's imperfect.
It's raw and real.
Yeah. But
that sounds like great prayer.
It is.
Raw and real.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I go to my Magnificat and read either the evening prayer or the prayer at night or whatever, and then I sometimes just sit. I also a lot of times on social media, not all the time, but I'll tell people I'm going to Adoration.
Yep.
Do you have any prayers? And it's amazing how many people ask for prayers, all over the place. And sometimes people will write me in advance, I know you're going to go to Adoration tonight, so could you pray for this? They'll send me a little note. So I love that. And I take it seriously. I do pray for all of those things that people ask of me. And so that fills a lot of time right there.
It does fill a lot of time. Well, it's amazing how the Lord leads us in our own routines that are sort of personal for us,
Yeah.
Everyone's routine is just a little bit different.
Yep.
But it has those same qualities. Sometimes there's those golden nuggets of the way we start, reminding ourselves of certain truths, or just receiving the truth,
Yeah.
that helps us get started. There's that time of sharing with the Lord, that time of listening, even time of liturgical prayer, like evening prayer, time of intercession. These are all great things. This is a great routine you have.
Can I share one really cool Adoration story? During COVID, it shut down.
Adoration shut down.
Yeah, and I depended. I just had learned so much to get so much from that. And then when we couldn't even go to Mass, I was kind of grief stricken. So I went over to the cathedral that was Well, I had the combination.
Yeah.
And I went in and the lights were off and I would turn on the light. I would go to my same adoration night and the lights would be off. I put
there.
yes. And well, one time I thought I was alone. When I first went, I was like, Jesus isn't even, like there was no exposition. And I was up on the loft and just, again, partially dark. And I just was so sad. I felt like we got shut out and we can't access the Eucharist anymore. It was just such a sad time. And then I saw in the back, there's a case with some relics or something. Mm-hmm. And I saw the little light over there flickering and I saw that Jesus was with me. Yeah. The little red light and I just was so happy. So I did that for quite a while. That little red light
causes a lot of joy, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah. And I didn't even realize it at first. And I'm like, I think I cried. I just wept and I just was so happy. And I thought, Jesus is hidden, we're kind of hidden right now. We're kind of tucked away and we're kind of, it was really profound though. And that became a way for me to kind of survive through kind of a dark time.
Yeah.
So that's how much I love it.
The real presence, the real presence lingering for us and being there.
Yeah.
And sensing that, what you said was key. I sensed, I wondered, was I alone?
Yeah. Right? And then, I thought I was.
And what made you weep was, I'm not alone.
I know.
He's here with me.
Gosh,
yeah.
You're here. And this is sad, but you're here. You're still here with us.
And we can sense his presence. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also just almost we're in prison, but you're there too. He doesn't leave us. Sure.
We were suffering in this time, but he was there with us.
And it was a time where I was really struggling with trust. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if the world was going to end. It was a really scary time. And then being a mom and trying to keep everyone calm and they weren't doing their routines anymore. And I'm a planner and I didn't know what to do with my time. And so I did go through a time where I was really questioning, are you going to be with us though, Lord? If this gets really bad, are you going to still be around? And I think that was a sign.
It was almost an answer to that prayer.
Yeah.
This is one way I'll always be here.
Yeah. It's beautiful. So
it's wonderful. Yeah. Any other special encounters that you've had at Adoration, or any special moments of grace, consolation, clarity, or connection with the Lord?
A couple things. One is right now when we're recording this is an Advent, and a couple years ago I had this illumination of how when the Magi go to adore Jesus in the manger, that's what we're doing. We're kind of going into this little cave and tucked away with our Lord, and just that connection between Christmas and Jesus coming to us. It's so incarnational. And, I think the more I spent time in adoration, the more I understood how God wanted to be with us, how he wanted to touch us through his presence, not just in theory or in soul, but physically, tangibly have something to leave with us. It makes so much sense as humans that we would need that. And another thing is through adoration, because we just have this thing at our parish where we start and end with a prayer, and we end with the Anima Christi. And I again, growing up, didn't know that prayer.
It's a great prayer. It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
So I just kind of decided I was going to learn it because I didn't want to have to read the thing, and so I determined to memorize it. And now that's my prayer after I receive the Eucharist. And I really like it because sometimes I can get distracted. After the Eucharist, you're walking through, especially we're in the back of the church, remember? So we're walking through all these people, and you might see someone and whatever. And now that I've started saying the Anima Christi, it's like everything has focused inward, and I can really take a little bit more time to just be thankful and grateful and thank God for that gift instead of being distracted by whoever. I'm just more focused and focusing on that prayer. And it's so beautiful. It's a prayer that you could almost bring to your deathbed.
Yeah. Powerful prayer.
Yeah. Not too long.
It's a way of really uniting ourselves with Jesus in all these specific ways. Soul of Christ, sanctify me. Body of Christ, save me. Blood of Christ, inebriate me. It's just inviting Jesus just to
Passion for Christ,
just
strengthen me. Oh, good Jesus, hear me. Within your wounds, hide me. I love that.
That's the best
one,
isn't it?
Yes.
Within your wounds, hide me.
And then from the evil one, protect me. I need that too. It's like, thank you for protecting me,
No, that just sums it up, doesn't it?
Yes. And close to you bid me with your saints, I may be praising you forever. It never ends on a high note of thinking about heaven.
Yep. And it ends with the goal in mind.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, like, what are the fruits that you notice that flow from your time spent with the Lord in adoration?
Sometimes I'm very selfish with it, and in fact, there's times I wish I could just be alone, and I love my adoration partner, but some of my best times have been when it's just me and God, and I can just weep or just be super vulnerable and talk out loud even. Then I'm like, is there a camera in here? Like, are people watching me from the rectory? But it's just beautiful and very intimate. And also just what I had mentioned earlier about sharing that with others and inviting them. I'm a communicator, and I didn't really set out with much of a thought about it or that I hoped that X, Y, and Z would happen. But I love that people think of me, like people from other places and people who aren't even Catholic, that I've maybe introduced them to adoration. I mean, it's not just Catholics that ask for prayers.
It's everybody.
Yeah. And I don't get the sense that they think that I'm some magician that's going to go and do this, but I think they sense my sincerity, and I sense that they really believe that I will bring their prayers to God and that it will have an effect. And that's like through social media, through the computer, and yet it feels really sincere and it feels real. And I guess that was a surprise, a fruit that I wasn't expecting in just that invitation. Yeah. And so in that, it has become almost like a little bit of a ministry sometimes, in terms of I'm not just going for me. And not only that, but my family. I don't always, but I try to ask them, I'm going to adoration, what can I pray for? And just kind of bring that awareness to them and that reminder. And I think they see me in that way, that mom's going to adoration and, she asked me whatever. I don't know however they take that, but that's who I am, and I love them, and I want, even if they won't come with me at this point or whatever, I can bring them with me in that way.
It sounds like you bring a lot of people to adoration.
I think so. And yet, it is really personal too. You know what I mean? Like this journal. This is like my little my love letter to God. So, but yes, I guess.
And that's a great connection to ordinary life. Like you have all these people you're interceding for. The people who passed away that you're praying for. I mean, it's sort of, it's personal, but yet it's communal at the same time. That's the power of the Eucharist sometimes.
Yes.
It's personal and communal at the same time.
And the other part about just heaven and earth kind of coming together. And that's more about the Eucharist, just, you're uniting with heaven. Yeah,
that's a holy place where heaven and earth meet.
And that's when, those who have gone before us, like my dad, who died in 2013, those are times where I sense his presence and know that somewhere. And then we lost a baby one time in miscarriage, and kind of being united too with heaven, which we yearn for that. And so there's so many beautiful fruits.
Well, fantastic. Roxane, thanks for sharing so much today.
Yes, I mean, I'm happy to do it. It's something I really love and something that has blessed me so much. And interestingly, I told you I didn't grow up with adoration, and my mom didn't really. I've actually got my mom now. She goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So now she goes on Wednesday during the day, and then I go at night. So we kind of have the day covered.
Yeah. So, Wednesdays are your days.
Yes. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and being part of this Eucharistic revival. And thanks to everyone for tuning in and hearing more about all the great ways that the Lord is touching many hearts and minds in our parish. And maybe He wants to touch yours too through a deeper prayer life and time spent with the Lord in adoration. So peace be with you, blessings, and may the Lord bless you a lot this week.